understand that historically there were two types of slaves, the house Negro and the field Negro. Now the house Negro, he lived in the house next to his master in the big house, either in the basement or up in the attic. He dressed pretty good, he ate pretty good, what the master left him. He loved his master. I say he loved his master better than the master loved himself. If the master said, we got a nice house here, he said, yeah, boss, we got a nice house here. Master's house caught on fire, the house Negro would be the one who'd run to put the blaze out. If the master got sick, he said, what's the matter, boss? We sick? We sick. You see, this is the thinking of the house Negro. Now, if another slave came up to him and said, let's run away, let's separate, let's get away from this cruel master, he said, why? What's better than what we got here? Run away, I'm not going anywhere. This is the house Negro. In those days, we called him the house nigger. And that's what we call him today, because we still got a lot of house niggers running around here.
That was powerful. That was tough. That was serious. Wow. Wow. Denzel. Wow.
As an American, I am so sick and fucking tired of the lies that Western media, Republican and Democrat, that y'all are both putting out lies about what is going on in Gaza. So I went to watch the news last night, and there was a story about an Israeli family. I don't watch the news for information. I watch the news to be like, what are they saying is happening? And the story was telling about a family in Israel that got displaced. They had to relocate to a hotel because of the attacks from the Hamas that killed 50 people in their area. And they were saying how hard it was to be living in a hotel with their entire family fitting in one room. How dare you report on a singular family from Israel that's been displaced when there are over 2 million families in Gaza displaced? What about them being displaced? And they're not being displaced into nice little hotels with running water and food and a nice roof over your head, and you don't have to worry about bombs dropping on your place to stay. No, that's not what's happening. They are being displaced onto the goddamn streets. And let's talk about what Israel's trying to do with the hospitals, shall we? Oh yeah, they want to forcibly evacuate 22 hospitals with thousands of men, women, and children who are dying in them. Thousands! So don't sit here and say you care about civilian lives if you want to evacuate goddamn hospitals, 22 of them. And don't sit here and say, oh, well, maybe they have the civilians' best interests at heart. They want to relocate them. The United Nations, their WHO organization, WHO stands for World Health Organization. They have already stepped in and condemned this. They have said, if you evacuate these hospitals, people will die. There are people in these hospitals in intensive care. There are people in these hospitals on life support. There are people in these hospitals getting hemodialysis. There are children in these hospitals in goddamn incubators. There are mothers who are pregnant trying to keep their child alive in their stomach long enough to give birth. And you want them to evacuate somewhere safe, right? There is nowhere safe. There is nowhere safe. There is nowhere safe left in Gaza. And let's say there is. Let's play into your bullshit lies. There is somewhere safe for them to go, right? No worries. You just have to, 1, make it there alive because you're all dying coming from a hospital, right? And then 2, you have to walk through all of the rubble of what is left of Gaza to get there. You have to walk on the bodies of your people, your dead men, women, and children as you're dying yourself and try to make it to this safe place, right? And then don't forget the fact that Israeli forces will be waiting to arrest you when you get there. Fuck that. So genuinely, sincerely, from everybody who sees through your bullshit, fuck you for reporting on a singular family in Israel that had to go to a hotel. The children of Gaza are in the fucking streets. Some of them buried under buildings. Fuck you. Fuck you. Genuinely. Do you know how much food is left in Gaza? How's the water in the hotel? How's the food? Because Gaza has almost none left. You guys are fucking disgusting.
This war must end. It must. It has to. Way too many people die.
Welcome to Clipscope for amazing, extraordinary TikTok videos. Let's get straight into it.
Are you speaking of the Arab slave trade?
Yes, sir. Yes,
okay,
sir.
okay. Without question. Now, the difference between the Arab slave trade and the European slave trade is the Arab slave trade never ended. The Arab slave trade is going on right now. And I would personally fault many African-American Sunni Orthodox Muslim leaders for hiding the Arab slave trade under the umbrella of their religion. One of the reasons I left the masjid, because I was raised Muslim, Sunni Orthodox Islam. One of the reasons I had to abdicate from the masjid is there was too much cultural imitation going on. I'm not an Arab. And black people didn't leave the white man's Christianity to go to the Arabs' Islam. Now, Muhammad ibn Abdullah was a blue, black, purple man, just like Jesus, son of Joseph and Mary. You understand? So we don't have to imitate Arabs. But when you don't know who you are, you automatically pick up somebody else's culture. And every religion was incubated in a culture. So Islam was incubated in Arab culture. Although the Arabs of that day were black men who evolved into pale and yellow, still we sucked up the culture more than the religion. And there's a hadith from the Prophet Muhammad who said, give them religion, don't take away their culture. Because he understood that my 23 years of being a prophet cannot compare to 200,000+ years of African culture.
Oh, yeah.
Muhammad was only with you 23 years. Jesus was with you 3. So I'm going to throw out hundreds of thousands of years of African culture for 3 years of Jesus and 23 years of Muhammad. I got to be insane. And my problem with the Muslim brothers and sisters who I love, I'll still go to the masjid and pray. I love them, but I cannot tolerate the Arab cultural imitation. Okay? There's no such thing as Muslim food. Show me Muslim food in the Quran. The Quran does not mention anything about no Muslim food. That's Arab food. See? And you're taking Arab culture and you're putting it in your religion and you're making it divine. And that's why I agree with Dr. Yusuf bin Yaqin, Garveyite scholar, ancestor now, grandmaster teacher, when he said, religion is the deification of culture. Religion is the deification of culture. When Leonardo da Vinci painted The Last Supper in 1482, 10 years before Columbus, that white Jesus still with us now, still in the black church now, that white Jesus, that pale skin, blue-eyed, blonde hair, deified white people in the minds of Africans. It has deified us so much that most black churches will never get rid of that white Jesus, even though they know Jesus wasn't white. I spoke in Fort Lauderdale a couple years ago. There was a fundraiser for the Marcus Garvey Technical School in Kingston, Jamaica. I believe it's in Kingston. But the Marcus Garvey Technical School of Jamaica had a fundraiser and I keynoted, right? I met a brother there from Jamaica. He said, Dr. Umar, let me tell you a story. True story. He said, I belong to a church in Jamaica that has a white Jesus. He said, I went out and got a black artist to paint the most beautiful black Christ you can ever see in your life. I told the pastor, we got a black Jesus now. You can get rid of that. And the black pastor in Jamaica told him that painting will never be hung in here. This is the Jesus that we will serve. When your enemy becomes your deity, when your deity and your enemy are one in the same and you are comfortable with that, you deserve to be a slave.
Yeah.
You deserve to be a slave. I will never worship God in the image of another people. And the irony of it is every religious teacher in ancient time came in our skin. Buddha looked like me. Krishna looked like me. Moses, Muhammad, Jesus, they was all black, but we are so comfortable and content worshiping him in the image of our oppressor. And if you say Jesus should be black,
you take a shovel.
I'll tell you what, religion versus culture complex. Merging the two together, boy, that's on a whole different level.
Can you eventually dig through the earth? Dig to 1 meter. This is where gophers live. Dig to 2 meters. This is where humans are laid to rest after death. Dig to 6 meters. Metal detectors can only detect up to this depth. Dig to 20 meters. This is the depth of the Paris catacombs, home to 6 million corpses due to the plague. Dig to 40 meters. The world's deepest swimming pool only reaches this depth. Dig to 85 meters. This is the depth of Derinkuyu Underground City, a cave with 1,200 rooms, which can accommodate 20,000 people. Dig to 105 meters. This is the depth of the Arsenalna metro station in Ukraine, the deepest train station in the world. Dig to 115 meters. This is the depth of the English Channel Tunnel, a 50-kilometer-long railway tunnel connecting England to France. Dig to 120 meters. This is where the deepest tree roots discovered reside. In a southern cave, there is a wild fig tree that, if uprooted, would stand as tall as a 40-story building. Dig to 155 meters. This is the depth of the Sala Silver Mine Hotel in Sweden. A stay here costs $4,000, and you have to take a mine elevator to reach the hotel. tell. Dig to 212 meters. The world's deepest marathon is held at this depth. It's hard to imagine the feeling of running here. Dig to 240 meters. This is the depth of the Seiken Tunnel, located in the Tsugaru Strait in Japan. Dig to 392 meters. This is the depth of the Woodingdean Well, the deepest well ever dug by human hands without any mechanical equipment. If you accidentally fall in, it would take 11 seconds to hit the bottom. Dig to 700 meters. This is the depth of the San Jose mine in Chile, famous for the 33 miners who were trapped for 69 days and were eventually rescued. 1,160 meters. This is the depth of the deepest bat cave on Earth. It's also where several countries store their nuclear waste. 1,271 meters. The deepest concert ever held took place in a disused Finnish mine in 2007. 1,642 meters. This is the depth of Lake Baikal, regarded as the deepest lake in the world. 2,400 meters. This is where the Jinping Underground Laboratory in China is located, used for dark matter detection and research. 3,600 meters. This is where the deepest dwelling animal, the devil worm, resides. Dig to 6,000 meters. This is the limit where microbes can survive. 11,000 meters. This is the Mariana Trench, the deepest part of the world's oceans. 12,000 meters. This is the maximum depth reached by the Kola Super Deep borehole. It's hard to imagine what would happen if they reached the Earth's crust. Would it spell disaster for our planet? 12,400 meters. This is the depth of the Z44 oil well, the current human limit. By the time you reach this depth, you might feel pretty cool, thinking you're close to the Earth's core. But think again. The Earth's radius is 6,371 kilometers, and our maximum limit is only 12 kilometers, which is only 0.2% of the Earth's radius. Considering the high temperatures and pressures at the core, even with technological advancements over the next few thousand years, it would still be unattainable. And even if we did reach the core, it would destroy the Earth. Now you understand why humans can explore outer space, but none have ventured to the Earth's core.
I don't like underground. I don't like going under. I don't mind going this way, but this way, no, not for me.
The majority is getting increasingly strong. It's not a majority in the country, but if you go to towns, Luton, London, Bradford, Leicester, Birmingham, and that isn't problematic in itself, except that diversity always means not white. And no one will recognise that at the point that whites, they're a minority, they should also have some rights. It will be important to look after white people just as it's important to look after ethnic groups and others. And what breaks my heart is to travel and speak to ordinary Brits who will tell you, I just feel like second-class citizen. I don't belong here. That breaks my heart. Demographically, we're already gone. 7 out of 10 new entrants to schools in London are Muslim children. No problem, but demographically that tells you something. Most common name in the country, Mohammed II, Mohammed. It tells you something. And it tells me that white Christians one day will look to leave this country, and that makes me very sad. And not only does it make me sad, it does make me want to kind of help fighting for people who feel they no longer count in this country.
A wise person once said,
I'm not sure. I felt very uncomfortable listening to that. I thought we were about diversity, equality, but I don't know. I feel uncomfortable listening to that.
what surprises me most about humankind is that we get bored of our childhood, rush to grow up, and long to be children again. That we lose our health to make money, and then lose our money to restore our health. That by thinking anxiously about the future, we forget the present, such that we live in neither the present nor the future. That we live as if we were never going to die, and die as though we've never lived.
You know Monster Energy?
Yeah.
So on the Monster Energy can, right? The symbol of the M.
It's a claw. It's supposed to be a claw.
It's supposed to be a claw. Yeah. Kinda. Every line in the M, it doesn't attach. Yeah, have you noticed that? It doesn't attach. It doesn't all attach.
Yeah.
So that symbol, that like, it looks kind of like the number 1, it goes down.
Yeah.
That's actually a Hebrew symbol that translates to the number 6.
Okay.
So 666.
No.
Look at your M closely. There's a gap right here in the letter.
Monster Energy. Why would that have a cross?
You need to hear this.
I'll tell you what, I've never tried the Monster drink, and having listened to this, I don't know.
The U.S. might be struck by a series of plagues. Yes, you heard that right. Most of you remember that about a month ago, New York was covered in smoke due to wildfires in Canada. Many people believed that this smoke was there to conceal changes in the size of the sun and moon, or that the smoke had a particular meaning in itself. Then, at the beginning of June, thousands of dead fish washed up on the beaches of Texas. And while the official reason for this mass death is the increase in water temperature, many have pointed out that this is unusual for this time of year. Then, heading over to Vegas, a family not only had a strange encounter with an alien-like species, but millions of crickets have overrun their streets, to the point that cars were slipping on them, and some families had to clear paths just to be able to get to their driveway or car. This strange series of events has led some to believe that the U.S. might be experiencing plagues, or that these might be signs of the end times. People, let me know what you think.
This is the most dangerous book in the world. It was written by a human inspired by a jinn. The original copies of the book were bound in human skin. The Necronomicon, or Al-Azif, is a book about black magic and civilizations from millions of years ago that lived on Earth before humans even existed, and they were demonic civilizations. The book will guide you on how to communicate with these creatures, but only through black magic. Many people try to find this book to read it, but no one succeed. It leads you to disbelief or madness, and even cause your death. All copies of this book have been completely burnt. Just one copy of this book left in the Vatican Library. No one could get this copy unless they have an official and secret permission. It's mentioned that he wrote this book by being alone in the empty quarter desert for 10 years. But the ending of Abdullah al-Hazred's story was scary and mysterious. He was punished in the most terrifying way. It's said that he was fighting with a weird creature and he emerged from nowhere and looked huge and terrifying. Suddenly attacked Abdel al-Hazred, dismembered him into many pieces and then took the rest with it.
If you see this
Why would anyone want to read a book like that? I wouldn't.
marking outside of your house, you need to get help. Burglars are using these symbols to represent which household you are. Alarmed, nervous, burglared before, vulnerable female, too risky, and nothing worth stealing. And they're drawing these symbols outside their houses they're planning on going to. These are known as curb codes for burglars. And even the police are telling you guys to look out for these markings outside of your home. So if you see any of these markings, you need to call for help. And make sure you follow me for more to stay safe.
I have a question. Who made the universal decision that we should eat lunch at 12? Who decided that it should take 4 years apiece to finish high school and college? Who made the decision that a minute should be 60 seconds and an hour should be 60 minutes? These are all questions I've been asking myself recently. And I've come to realize that while time itself was created by God, its perception was created by humanity and materialized by these clocks we've put on the wall. You see, there's nowhere in this world you can go and not find a clock. And that's because we as society put them there to remind you. You see, society says you should brush your teeth for 2 minutes. Society says you should sleep for 8 hours. Society says you should be done school by 22, have a career by 25, a family by 30, be successful by 40, and retire by 60. You see, we've created this one-size-fits-all timeline for life, thinking we can all wear the same clothes. And when we personally realize that they don't fit, we blame it on ourselves, acting like we've gained weight. Stop letting society's clock dictate when you show up. My time is different from your time. And just because you're not where society says you should be at this point in your life doesn't make you late. It makes you, you.
Well, I'll say, work hard, stay focused, do the best you can, don't worry too much about the future. Somehow, the universe will help you and guide you and see you through.
Man, so the Bible frowns upon divorce, right?
Yep. Malachi 2:16, I hate divorce, says the Lord God of Israel.
The overall attitude of the Bible is that marriage is a lifetime commitment. Right. So when we vow until death do we part, death is literally what we mean as the only thing that separates a husband from a wife. Jesus says in Matthew 19:6, so they are no longer two, but one. Therefore, what God has joined together, let man not separate. Yeah, but what do Christians do when it comes to legitimate reasons for divorce? Right. There are some exceptions mentioned, and Jesus explains why in Matthew 19, verse 8, where he says, because of your hardness of heart, Moses allowed you to divorce your wives, but from the beginning it was not so. We see in the book of Deuteronomy where Moses lays down laws that protect the rights of those affected by divorce. Right. So no, God didn't intend for divorce because marriage was designed to be permanent. But he understands that because of sin, there are instances where divorce is permissible. Okay. Paul makes clear in 1 Corinthians 7 that divorce is a no-no, and that if someone does divorce, they aren't to remarry. But, again, there are some apparent exceptions that Paul touches on in verse 15, where he says, a believer abandoned by an unbelieving spouse is not bound. So in other words, if your spouse isn't a Christian, and they abandon you, you can move on from that person and potentially remarry. Okay. And then Jesus says in Matthew 19 that if a man divorces his wife, except for sexual immorality, and marries another woman, he commits adultery when he does that. So if your spouse isn't a Christian and leaves you, you can remarry. And if there's sexual immorality, that's grounds for divorce too. Correct. Okay, but what about situations of abuse? That's a good question, because the Bible doesn't address what to do in marriage situations where there are victims of abuse. And what I don't want to do here is insert opinions onto the text. Sure. Also, we need to be careful here, because on one side, I want to be sensitive to real victims of physical abuse, but what we can't do is create false ideas that any conflict in marriage is considered abuse. Makes sense, because someone could say arguing with their spouse could be considered abuse. Exactly. We gotta be wise here. So, since abuse in marriage isn't addressed in Scripture, what we want to do is look at other scriptures that give good reasons to believe it is permissible to flee a marriage that is putting someone in radical danger or harm. Okay. First of all, we're all encouraged and called to forgive one another. Ephesians 4:32 says, be kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving each other, just as God in Christ also has forgiven you. And we got to remember that when Jesus says sexual immorality gives us the exception for divorce, he doesn't say we have to divorce. There can be forgiveness, reconciliation, and healing that can be worked on. So divorce should be the last resort for an unrepentant spouse who just won't work to correct the wrong they've done in the marriage. Makes sense. I think, especially in Western culture, divorce has become like the refresh button on our internet browser. We face a little bit of friction and click, we want to start over, end the marriage, move on to someone else. As long as we have a small sense of being a victim, we don't even consider forgiveness and jump at the chance to make ourselves happier in a new relationship. It's a worldly pattern, and sadly, it's crept its way into the church. So we should be seeking healing in broken situations. We're sinful human beings that all need grace. No one deserves the forgiveness God gives us, and so we need to model that same example. It's true. But let's talk about harm. Physical abuse that happens in a marriage. Forgiveness is one thing, but the safety of an individual, and especially children, overrides your mandate to remain married. Okay. But let's bring some Bible into this. There are many instances where rules are in place, but violations of those rules are considered good. Jesus brings this up when the Pharisees rebuke him for letting his disciples pick heads of grain to eat off this field during the Sabbath, which was against the Sabbath law. But he reminds them of 1 Samuel 21, where David entered the house of God to take consecrated bread, which by law was only for priests, and he and his companions ate it when they desperately needed it. Then Jesus says, have you not read in the law that on the Sabbath, the priests in the temple break the Sabbath and are innocent? So it's this idea of, here's a law given by God, but here's also an example of how violating that law is good. Okay. He goes on by saying, if a man has a sheep and it falls into a pit on the Sabbath, will he not take hold of it and lift it out? How much more valuable then is a man than a sheep? So then it is lawful to do good on the Sabbath. Good point. There's many other examples too, like how Christians are told to obey the government, but then in the book of Acts they disobey because God is the higher priority. Ezekiel eats unclean food when God tells him to, despite it being forbidden. Then there's Abigail in 1 Samuel when she goes behind her husband's back and ends up saving hers and her servants' lives, despite the Bible commanding to respect your husbands. So regarding abuse in a marriage, let's say a woman leaves her husband for her safety and the safety of her children. Based on what I see in these emergency situations in the Bible, I would say this definitely qualifies as a reason for divorce. Okay. That said, knowing that God hates divorce, that humans are prone to sinning against each other and need forgiveness, we should be in prayer, getting sound biblical advice, and using wisdom on who we decide to marry while we're dating. Yeah, that's probably wise. Hollywood and the media has done us no favors for setting the standard of what dating and marriage should look like. So we need to build that strong foundation first, before we get married. Right. Just as we value attraction and personality in the people we want to date, above all else, we need to value their commitment to Christ. Is the person we're attracted to more interested in their will or God's will? That's probably a good question to start with. Yep. But to wrap this up, again, God is pro-marriage, anti-divorce. His laws, rules, and commands are to protect the ones he loves. But when it comes to people's safety, those rules, laws, and commands become the lesser priority. Jesus ends up saying to these Pharisees, I tell you that one greater than the temple is here. If you had known what these words mean, I desire mercy, not sacrifice, you would have not condemned the innocent.
So I actually don't.
I'll tell you what, that was deep, it was serious. My advice, what I would take from that, choose your lifetime partner carefully, and when you find them, stick with them. It's for the long run.
Don't wipe my bum.
Eh? Tell me you are joking, please.
When you think about it, in nature, no other animal wipes after they use the restroom.
My brain is not braining. You are mad. Are you okay? What brain did you use to brain that? Because why are you comparing yourself with an animal? Of course an animal does not wipe his ass. Because it's using nature as its toilet.
So why do we do that?
Because it's hygienic and you don't want to be walking around with your bunda stinking. Exactly.
I know there's got to be a benefit to not wiping.
There is no benefits whatsoever. Your ass will be stinking. Thank you.
But if God wanted us to wipe...
Sis. Leave God out of this. Because he gave you the brain to brain, but you are not using the brain. Your brain is not braining.
If God wanted us to wipe after we use the restroom, we would have a built-in way to do that into our anatomy. You know what I mean?
What the hell? Lady, my processor is not processing. So no, I don't know what you mean.
So because we don't, I personally believe that wiping after using the restroom is not good for your health.
Madam, just say you don't want to wipe your ass. There is no way you're going to say that nonsense. And please, we will stay away from you. You will have a different corner and do not be embarrassed when someone says you stink like... You know what? People, ladies and gentlemen, please wipe your ass. In fact, not wipe. Wash your ass with soap. With soap. Thank you.
Simpsons' predictions for 2024 are truly chilling. In an episode dating back to 1998, the show hinted at an economic crisis, a nuclear war, and the death of the leader of the United States, all happening in the same year. The episode in question, titled Bart to the Future, provides a glimpse into the future where Lisa Simpson has become the President of the United States. In a conversation with her team, Lisa mentions that the previous administration led by President Biden left behind budget problems and quite a mess. Later in the episode, a news bulletin reports a nuclear clash with an unspecified country, resulting in massive destruction and chaos. While the idea of a nuclear war and an economic crisis is quite frightening, we can certainly hope that these Simpsons predictions do not come true. However, it's hard to ignore the show's track record in predicting major events, which leads us to wonder what else they might have predicted for the future. And precisely, one of the latest episodes of The Simpsons contains an even more terrifying prediction than anything they have predicted before. Do you want a part 2 to find out about it?
I'm going to show you how to check the password of the Wi-Fi connected to any laptop, any phone, or any desktop. Come over, I show you. So all you need to do, click on Windows R, then you have to type ncpa.cpl, then click on enter. Then all you have to double click on Wi-Fi, Geek Tech Computers. Now remember, we want to know the Wi-Fi password. Then come and click on wireless properties, then click on security, then show character, and boom, this is how we get the Wi-Fi password of the Wi-Fi connected to any laptop or desktop and phone. You guys are most welcome. If you love our content, always remember to follow, like, and share for more. Peace out.
No, this is not just a virus, but one discovered that cannot die, super strong, and has just been released to the public. Scientists named Anatoly Brochkov discovered and revived a virus that has lived 3.5 million years and is still thriving and multiplying. Known as Bacillus F, Anatoly Brochkov had injected the virus in mice, flies, and other animals, and what he found was terrifying. When injected in these animals, they would live either 2 or 3 times longer and were much stronger. Many were terrified what the government could possibly do with this type of virus and if this was going to be used for military battle, with scientists saying this virus could be used not only to extend human life, but sustain it forever. Anatoly, upon his research, injected himself with the virus, for funsies. Upon injecting it in himself, he says that he has not had as much as a cold in the last decade.
After I took it, I never had the flu for 2 years, at least for 2 years. So any cold, any type of the cold.
And then many others theorize this virus could be the cure for many different modern diseases. Would you get this?
What really happened to Flight 370? The biggest and the strangest mystery in the history of airplanes, the Malaysian plane MH370, took off on March 8, 2014 and disappeared from existence. And until today, they don't know where it landed, where it settled, or anything about the plane. The number of passengers was 239 passenger. The plane took off from Kuala Lumpur, and it was supposed to be heading to Beijing International Airport in China. The flight was 6 hours long, and after 20 minutes of taking off, the plane reached a height of 35,000 feet. And finally, after the plane arrived to the Vietnamese watchtower, the last word they heard before the strange disappearance was, "Good night." And the biggest mystery in the airplane history started from here. The plane disappeared as if it never took off, and there was nothing on the radar at all. The rescue teams started to search for it everywhere in the air, the sea, the oceans. They spread in the area 34 ships and 28 planes for 7 countries that participated in the search, but they didn't find any trace of the plane. After the investigators reviewed the satellite system, they noticed that the plane continued to fly for more than 7 hours after disappearing. And this is what made the subject more mysterious. Many theories have emerged trying to explain the mystery of Flight 370. But until today, no single theory has been confirmed.
One of the most evil, vicious Navy bases in the history of the planet. They do stuff that would make like Santa Claus. Diego Garcia.
So...
Wait.
Sorry.
Diego Garcia. That's where that first Malaysian plane is. That's where it landed. It had 4 scientists on it. 20 scientists, but 4 had filed for patents. It was Malaysia, but they worked out of Austin, Texas, for Texas Instruments. And the ones behind that plane was Texas Instruments, the government, and Boeing, who made the plane. And everybody is stupid enough to believe that a plane almost a block long can just disappear. With the electronics we have, next generation of cars will come out, there'll be no driver. So we got 4 of those top scientists that had filed for patents worth $400 billion. And then here's a friend of yours who's with us. So 5 of us filed for patents. If we die before the patent is granted, then your brother, who wasn't on the plane with us, he owns them all. So those 4 scientists, and the 5th person was the Carlyle Group. They own them all now. The patent was granted 3 days after the plane was missing.
Wow. Thanks for watching. We appreciate your time. See you on the next one.